A struggling farmer answers a midnight call offering cash for a quiet job. No questions asked. He's told to bury a package under the willow tree before sunrise. Desperate, he agrees. But just as the first shovelful of dirt hits the earth, the body wrapped in burlap breathes. What he uncovers next will drag him into a dark world of lies, survival, and a second chance no one saw coming. The old rotary phone rang just after midnight, its shrill echo cutting through the creaky silence of Daniel Walker's worn-down farmhouse. He jolted upright in bed, heart pounding, not from fear but from habit. Calls at this hour never brought good news. He threw on a faded flannel shirt, still half asleep, and shuffled to the living room where the phone rested on a wobbly side table next to a dusty lamp and an old framed photo of his wife and daughter, both long gone. "Yeah?" he answered, his voice gravelly from disuse and sleep. A man's voice came through the line, low and impatient. "You still got that land out by the willow tree?" Daniel stiffened. "Who's asking?" "You don't need to know my name. You just need to listen carefully. There's a job for you. Pays $3,000 cash." "What kind of job?" "You dig a hole, 6 feet deep. You bury something. Before sunrise. No questions, no mistakes." Daniel's hand trembled slightly as he gripped the receiver tighter. "You want me to bury a body?" The voice didn't flinch. "Let's not call it that. Let's call it a delivery. You don't need details. Just get it done." The line went dead. He stood frozen for a moment, the silence in the room louder than the call had been. The kind of silence that presses against your chest, waiting for you to break. He stared at the receiver, the wood floor beneath his bare feet suddenly ice cold. It had been a long time since anyone had asked him for anything, let alone something like this. $3,000. That was more than he made in 2 months selling vegetables and eggs at the Saturday market. Enough to patch the barn roof, buy new seeds, maybe even fix the truck that died last winter. But blood money. He wasn't that kind of man. Yet, as he glanced at the stack of unpaid bills on the table and the sagging ceiling above, something shifted inside him, not darkness, not greed, but a tired kind of desperation. A man could only hear no from life so many times before he stopped asking for anything good. He grabbed his coat, boots, and the shovel he kept near the porch. The night air was biting, the kind of cold that stung your cheeks and reminded you that winter wasn't quite done. The directions had been clear. 5 miles down Miller's Creek Road, under the old bridge, a black van would be waiting. And it was. The van sat parked at an angle, headlights off, engine gone cold. Daniel approached it slowly, glancing around the empty woods. No lights, no signs of movement. He opened the back. A burlap sack lay across the floor of the van's cargo hold. Lumpy, human-shaped. His breath caught in his throat as he stepped closer, his boots crunching on gravel. He touched the fabric, cold but not stiff. He didn't dare open it. Daniel hoisted it into the back of his pickup, surprised at how light it was. Whoever it was, they couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds. He drove in silence, the weight in the truck bed pressing down on his soul harder than gravity ever could. Every bump in the dirt road rattled the back window and his resolve. Rusty, his old hound dog, whined in the front seat, as if sensing something wasn't right. At the edge of the forest, he parked. The willow tree stood tall in the moonlight, its branches hanging low like arms folded in mourning. The ground was soft here, perfect for digging. He grabbed his shovel and began. Each strike into the earth felt heavier than the last. The sweat ran down his spine, mixing with the cold air to leave him shivering. He glanced once toward the truck. The sack hadn't moved. He wiped his brow with a trembling hand and struck again, deeper now. The hole was almost halfway when he stopped to catch his breath, leaning on the shovel. That's when he heard it. A sound, small, barely there. A breath. Daniel turned so fast he nearly dropped the shovel. At first he thought he imagined it. But then again, another exhale, shallow, fragile, alive. He bolted to the back of the truck, tore the sack open, and his world froze. A young woman, pale, unconscious, but her chest moved, slow and shaky. She was breathing, alive, and he had almost buried her alive. Daniel's hands trembled as he lifted the young woman out of the truck bed, her body limp and fragile in his arms. She weighed almost nothing, skin and bone beneath layers of bruises and old bloodstains. Her face was smeared with dirt, her lips cracked, and one eye was swollen nearly shut. But she was alive, breathing, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. He carried her into the house, pushing open the old screen door with his shoulder. Rusty barked once, then fell silent, as if even he understood the gravity of what was happening. Daniel laid her gently on the worn-out sofa next to the wood-burning stove. He grabbed the wool blanket draped over the armrest and covered her up, then knelt beside her, trying to figure out what to do. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy and wide with panic. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as a dry rasp, incomprehensible. Daniel raised his palms slowly, gently. "You're safe. You're safe now. No one's gonna hurt you, I swear." He rushed to the kitchen and brought her a glass of lukewarm water. She tried to sit up, but her body was too weak. He helped tilt it to her lips. She sipped carefully, as if every drop might burn. Her breathing calmed just slightly. "I don't know what they did to you," Daniel muttered under his breath, "but whoever they are, they're not getting you back." She didn't speak much that night, only stared into the fire, flinching at every distant howl or creak of the house settling. Daniel sat across from her in his old recliner, unable to sleep, too shaken to rest. The reality of what nearly happened clawed at him. He had almost buried her alive. If she had woken up a minute later, if he had dug a little faster, he would have covered her with dirt and never known. By sunrise, she had fallen into a deep, exhausted sleep. Daniel stood, looked at her for a long time, then picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "Mary Ann," he said when the voice answered. "I need a favor, big one." The next few days blurred together. Daniel never left the house, except to get firewood or gather eggs. He cooked for her, cleaned her wounds with peroxide, and gave her space. He didn't ask questions, only answered them. His name, his home, the year. She barely spoke at first, but slowly she began to trust him. One afternoon, as the sun broke through the clouds and spilled warmth across the farmhouse floor, she said her first real sentence. "You were going to bury me." Daniel looked up from the chair, startled. "I didn't know you were alive," he said quietly. "I swear to God, I didn't." She nodded slowly. "I know." They sat in silence for a while. Then softly she added, "My name was Emily." "Was?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her eyes hollow. "I don't feel like her anymore." From that day on, Daniel called her Hope. Not just because she'd survived something horrific, but because in her quiet courage, she reminded him of what hope actually looked like: fragile, bruised but alive. Hope started to remember things in fragments. A silver watch, a locked room, a scream in the dark. She would wake in the middle of the night, gasping for breath, clutching her chest. Daniel would rush in, calm her with a damp cloth, sit beside her until she drifted back into sleep. He never asked for more than she could give. He read the news every morning, combing through stories of missing persons, looking for clues, and one day, he found it. A photograph in a small sidebar article, grainy, low-res, but unmistakable. A girl named Emily Rhodes, missing for 2 months. Atlanta police believed she'd run away. Her stepfather had called her unstable. Her mother had posted a reward, claiming her daughter had been taken. Daniel printed the article and left it on the table. When Hope came in and saw it, her face turned white. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. She said nothing, but he saw it in her eyes. Recognition, fear, and beneath it all, rage. "She didn't believe me," she whispered. "My mother, I told her what he did. She told me to stop lying. Then he made me disappear." Daniel sat down beside her. "You're not disappearing again. Not this time.